I've always been afraid of death. So when I was young and naive, I made a wish upon a shooting star. I wished to be immortal. Of course, I never thought anything would come of it, so I was surprised when, the next night, the stars answered me. They whispered to me, telling me how they'd granted my wish. A blessing, they called it. At the time, I agreed. I couldn't imagine any consequences, so I lived my life as anyone would, and I fell in love. I loved them so much. They were my world, my starlight, my life, my everything. We moved into a tiny cabin in the woods and lived off the land. We made a garden, and every night we would sing together under the stars. But soon it became clear to me that I had made a mistake. Soon they grew wrinkles and smile lines were set into their beautiful face. My features didn't change. I looked the same as I always have, and as I always will. Every wrinkle tells a story, a life lived well and long. Every smile line is a joke told and laughed at. So why am I not allowed to show my story? They never stopped loving me. They never grew resentful and stayed with me until their end. I remember those days, hours, minutes before, branded into my mind so that I never forget. I remember their smile being brighter than any star in the sky. I remember their voice, silky and ethereal, as they sang with me under the night sky. I refuse to think about their final moments, their final breaths, their final words. But one day they were gone and I was trapped here, alone. The next decade was a blur. It felt like half my soul had been torn, and it hurt so much to think of them. I tried to keep our traditions going, but it was never the same without them. The garden never seemed as green, and my songs felt hollow. So I stopped. The tools grew over with rust, and the guitar went out of tune. That was supposed to be the worst of it. Watching my beloved die was supposed to be the worst of it. I didn't know I could get sick. I watched as the humans who contracted this sickness suffered. Their eyes, nose, and mouth bled. Horrible sores erupted on their skin, and their insides liquefied until they were puked up. No one survived. Not until I contracted the disease. I felt every moment of pain, every moment of suffering. I felt everything. I felt my insides being liquefied and rebuilding themselves over and over and over and over until my entire world became pain. I thought when my beloved had died that I was alone, but I was wrong. No one else had survived the disease, and now I truly felt the crushing weight of loneliness. I became angry. So very angry, and I yelled at the stars, asking why me? Why they cursed me?
It's not a curse, it's a blessing, a gift to you,
they whispered to me then, and every time I asked. Once and only once, I tried to pray to God. I went out into the garden, looked up to the heavens, and shouted as loud as I could. If you're there, hear my prayer. Let me be with the one I love again. Let me be with anyone again. I beg of you, God Almighty. I can only hope that no one was there. Anger was almost normal to me. I had felt it for so long that it didn't rage like a fire in my chest. It sputtered and fizzled as if there was no oxygen. The anger I felt was anger of pain, suffering, and sorrow. I was so tired, and all I wanted was any human connection. The buildings that remained gave me that connection I craved. The last things left to prove that humans once existed, and I wasn't always alone. Time decided to steal even those from me. First the vines and greenery took them, and then they began to crumble until all that was left was dust in the air. That was the final straw. I couldn't take it anymore, and I snapped. I ran out into my garden full of rotted plants and weeds and fell to my knees. I screamed, yelled, and threatened the stars to fix me, to make me as I once was. And for the first time in my entire life, they did not answer me. I was miserable for so long that when my body began to feel different, I didn't notice. I didn't notice when my body felt more stiff, when my joints ached more, or when my lungs began to burn with every breath. I don't keep many mirrors around. It's hard to not see any changes in my face. So when I began to form wrinkles, I didn't notice. I never truly knew I was growing old. I just woke up one morning and knew my time was almost up. So I began to prepare. The first thing I did was clear my garden. I pulled out all the old, dead plants and weeds, and I planted beautiful new flowers. The second thing I did was grab my old guitar and tune it, taking great pains to make sure it sounded just as it did all those years ago. I waited till nightfall, and the third thing I did was sing. My song made its way up to the heavens for the stars to sing amongst themselves until they too are gone. I sang for my lover. I sang for all the humans and all their stories that are no longer told, and I sang for myself. I have always been afraid of death, but at that moment, I wasn't.